Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories to overcome adversity and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose. All right. Well, welcome to LaVoyce. We are so excited to have you on season 2 of Identity Unboxed. You currently work at the Continuum College at the University of Washington. You're also a realtor with Keller Williams, and you're the founder of your nonprofit, the Life Support Movement. We are really looking forward to speaking to you more about your career in real estate, about building generational wealth, and then also to hear your personal story of how you came to found your nonprofit. And our first question for you is, outside of your role at the University of Washington's Continuum College, you are a real estate broker with Keller Williams. Can you take us back to the moment that inspired you to pursue a career in real estate?
Yes. So back in the early 90s, I was a single mother, and I realized that my passion and desire for real estate was in the early 90s. As a young lady, I was always drawn to home design, building architects, the imagination of what a home could be, because my parents never bought a home. And so every time I would go to the grocery store, I would collect these home magazines and just turn the pages. And so every weekend I would watch home shows. And so as I got a little older, my kids got a little older, I decided to go to real estate school. And this was like early 2000. And at that time, I was working for King County Metro. I used to be a Metro bus driver. So in 2000, about 2000, 2001, I went to real estate school at Century 21. I completed the whole class, and I just did not take my state and national exam because, life was lifing. My daughter was sick. I had a lot of outside distractions, so I never took the exam. I just kind of just let that go. And so I picked it up during COVID 2020. And, we were all working from home, and I decided, okay, working from home, I picked up a part-time job at this women's work release, and it was a night job. So I would do the University of Washington during the day, and then I would go to work during the evening and get back home at 6:00 to start the U. And I would go in like 10 o'clock at night, and that was really exhausting, but it was a low-key job. And so at night, while all the residents were sleeping, I would just study at night during COVID. I would read, I would study, and it took me about maybe a year. And so I took my test 2021 in November, passed my test, and I'm a newly licensed agent. And so I passed my test, and I was like, yay, it's official, woohoo, and then, my daughter's no longer with me. And then my son, he doesn't live here. So it's not like I have a lot of things pulling me in different directions. And so since I've been in real estate, I love it. It's my calling. It's something that, a lot of times people don't know what they want to do, and they want to know, like, how do I know what to do with my life? I know what I want to do with my life because I wake up and I think about it. I go to sleep and I think about it. I'm always, when I'm at home in my downtime, I'm watching real estate shows, on the weekends. Before I got my license, I would always go to open houses and, walk through the homes. And that's what really inspired me. It's something that I never had as a child. I grew up very, very with humble beginnings. And so this is something that I always wanted to do. I couldn't give my kids a home, but we were always stable. We always had a place to stay. So, it's a life lesson. So that's really what inspired me to pursue a real estate career here in Washington, and you almost have to get another, I don't want to say hustle, but another something on the side because it's so expensive here. So it just works. I work when I want to work. If I don't want to work, I don't have to work. And so I control my time management, and it just works well with anything I have to do outside of the University of Washington.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so amazing to hear that, you always had that passion and it was innate within you and you were kind of living, eating, and breathing real estate. And then you just decided to really follow that. And I was hoping if you would share a little bit more about your upbringing. I know that you're the oldest of 12 siblings, which is a huge family. And I was going to ask you about like, were there any lessons that you would learn like growing up in that type of environment in your family, or just kind of like how that's shaped who you are as a person and approach
Sure.
in your work?
Sure. Well, being the oldest out of 12, I was always the one responsible for my younger, siblings. In my generation, I think I'm Generation X, born in 1968.
I think
So,
that's right.
okay, so in my generation, we had, and we had to, well, we didn't have to struggle. We struggled, so it's very different from today. So, going to Portland every summer and visiting my grandmother, and she lived in a house, and all the cousins would come together, including my siblings. We learned to cook at the age between 8 and 10. We had to. We had to take care of each other. We would wash clothes. We would hang them outside on the line. There used to be a line in the backyard. We would pin them up on the line. We didn't dry clothes. Sometimes when the washer and dryer wasn't working, we would walk to the laundry, wash our clothes, put them in a pillowcase, and come back home. We would walk to the store. Very seldom would we drive or get a ride to the grocery store. We would go to the store. My parents and my grandmother would give us a grocery list, and we would just go and get groceries. And so early on, um, I was taught to be very responsible when I didn't want to be responsible. I appreciate it now. I learned how to cook at an early age. I learned how to bake at an early age. I learned how to manage my money at an early age. It wasn't something that my family taught me. It's just my struggles taught me, because there was things that I didn't like, growing up. And I tell my son, and when my daughter was living, I told her, you're young, work on your credit. We didn't have roundtable discussions on the importance of having good credit, the importance of managing your money. We didn't talk about financial literacy. We didn't talk about any of that. When we were younger, our day to day was a meal on the table, or keeping clothes on our back, or going to school and doing our homework. My mom really, really enforced the importance of education. And growing up, I could see myself kind of living the way I was raised, and the things that I didn't have is the things that I really, really work for. I'm not really into things, my values. It's just being a hard worker, not being complacent, having a vision, executing your vision, finding your passion. Because I feel like everyone on this earth has a God-given responsibility, and they have to figure out what it is. They have to figure out what are they living and breathing, what they can't shake it. There's certain things I didn't want to do, but it's in me to do it, So real estate, I was like, I keep thinking about this. I like it, but I was trying to do other things in my life, but it just kept pulling me back to it. And so lessons early on, just being a hard worker. Hard work pays off. The younger generation is different because we didn't have social media. We didn't have all this technology. I had to look up words. We had a dictionary, a thesaurus. I had to look up everything. We didn't really use calculators back in the day. I'm told that the public schools, they really don't even teach handwriting. A lot of the younger kids don't even know how to write in cursive. So it's a different generation, but I think the lesson is timeless. You work hard. You work hard and it'll pay off. You stay consistent. You have a vision, because if you're all over the place, you're not going to really complete or do anything. So you have to execute and have a vision. And my biggest advice to younger people, don't do things for money. Do things because you love it. Because when you love it, it's not a job. It's really fun. So my younger siblings, we used to get into it. I was the disciplinary because my mom was at work and my dad was at work. And it was hard. It was hard. I complained then, but I'm very, very grateful now. There's things I didn't like, and I made decisions based on what I didn't like. I didn't like having all those responsibilities back then, and out of that, I became a teenage mom, out of just certain things that I didn't like. It's like, woo, I got to take care of all my sisters and brothers. I might as well just have my own, trying to escape from things. But, my mindset was that of a teenager. And I think about it, I'm like, oh, that was silly of me. But that was my journey. That was my lesson. And I'm grateful for it. I don't have any regrets. And that's just what it is. And I embrace it. And it kind of shaped me into who I am today.
Thank you so much for that. I feel like you touched on a lot of points about, just growing up and how we often are in that survival mode where, we're not taught about, building our finances. We're not taught about, having good credit in our families. Being the oldest sibling, I can relate, having to try to keep things together. And I'm sure you played peacemaker a lot of the time, like you said, and even having your own things that you did that you look back on. And it's good that you don't regret that, because I truly believe everything happens for a reason, and so I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for families and people who are kind of in that survival mode, who are having a hard time finding their passions at an early age and are kind of looking for that escape?
Surround yourself around positive people. Just surround whatever you aspire to be, even if you don't know what you want to be. Surround yourself around people that have a vision, around people who are doing positive things. The best advice I can ever give anyone is get rid of the toxins. You don't want to be in an environment where people are just you don't want to be around liabilities. You want to be around people that have value, that are assets, that would add and pour into your life. You don't want to be, for younger people, you don't want to be around people that's talking you out of getting a college degree. If you have a dream and someone shoots it down, you don't need to be in that space. You need to surround yourself around people that is going upward, that is moving forward. I fought a lot because when I was pursuing my career, things I wanted to do, I had people like very close to me telling me I'm crazy. You can't do that. Early on, when I was a teenager, I had people in my family, you're a teenage mom, you're not gonna make it, and I had to separate myself, quite naturally. I don't know if Tiana know, but I'm an introvert. And so I kind of stay to myself, and that's my safe space. But my whole life I was told what I couldn't do, and that pressed me. And then later on in life, I figured it out. There's not a textbook on how to live. You got to go through to figure out what works for you. And I figure out that hanging around and surrounding yourself with a wealth of knowledge and people that are smarter than you, people that can help you, people that are not envious and jealous of you, people that are happy when they win, you win. And so if there's someone out there that doesn't know where to start, get plugged in with a support group, go to the community centers, go speak to a counselor in these community colleges, look online, figure out what your passion is, and whatever your passion in, reach out to someone. I used to call, and people didn't know me. I used to call and say, hey, can I schedule an informational meeting just so I can ask some questions to see if this is a direction I want to go? So it's just that simple. And that's the best advice I can do. Be in control of your destiny, and don't let the discouragement and the negativity set you back.
That is such valuable advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you touch on a really important point about how people will project their own, inadequacies that they feel about themselves onto you because they know that they themselves probably couldn't achieve those goals in your situation, but you are entirely different people. And so that's so amazing to see that, you had that courage in yourself to continue pushing forward to your goals and surrounding yourself with people that were going where you wanted to go. And I think it's so important what you talked about just reaching out to folks that are doing what you want to do in the future and having that forward vision mindset, but also being around people that challenge you, because I know there's a common saying that we're kind of the average of the sum of the people that we, spend time around consistently. And if you're with people that are smarter than you, or, that are working that job that you want to get to, like, they're going to challenge you to reach your full potential. And that's who you need to be surrounding yourself with constantly, because you absorb everything,
Absolutely.
every single day. So that's just so great, for you to share that advice for young people that are kind of a little bit lost right now, not really sure what they want to do next, but it really just takes reaching out to that one person that could change the trajectory of your life. So that's why we wanted to have you on, So you're one of those people that will inspire those young real estate professionals. And just switching gears a little bit, we were wondering if you'd be able to talk a bit more when it comes to specific advice that you have for people that want to get into real estate, and if there are any particular challenges you confronted establishing yourself in this space. I know you talked about it's a little bit expensive, to kind of start out. You had to have the side hustles. You're in an expensive state, really trying to, make your presence known in the community so that you can start to get business. But are there any particular challenges that you had to overcome?
Challenges, huh? Well, my challenge in real estate in real estate, you need to start off with money. It takes money to make money. And you need to make sure you have a savings because there's monthly fees, there's association dues, there's a lot of things that come out before you get your first break as far as a sale. And so I had other brokers tell me that you need enough money to carry you for at least a year or two. I didn't know that going in, And in real estate, it's about building relationships of a lifetime and assisting in making one's dream come true, either if they're buying or selling. And then also, too, if you're unsure about real estate, just reach out to a broker. Anyone can reach out to me, and I can take them on a tour of what a day of real estate looks like here in Washington State. I can take them to an open house. I can take them to one of our sales meetings at the office. And so, but what I didn't know then is what I do now. You need to have a little savings, not unless you're living with your parents or you have a strong support system, but financially you need to have a cushion and just make sure it's something that you want to do. You don't do it for the money. You do it because you love people, because real estate is about building relationships. Because you sell someone a home or you approach anyone about a home, they don't want to hear, "Hey, are you ready to buy a house? I can help you." No, first thing they want you to say is, "How are you doing? How's the family? How's the kids? Is there anything I can help you?" Real estate is a service position. And when you're building relations like that, you sell them your home, they're going to think about you and they're going to want you to sell their home. And then they're going to want you to look. And then when they're ready to find another house, they're going to look for you to find clients. They're going to want you to list. And so those relationships are lifelong relationships. But the most important thing, the most challenging for me is I wasn't financially ready when I got in. I didn't ask the questions that I should have asked. I didn't do my homework. And so, fortunately, I had some sales to kind of get me above what I needed to be. And then you have to be prepared to, because it's your business. You make your business what you want. You have to be prepared to take out a certain percent to pay your own taxes. It's different than a 9 to 5. You have to have your own medical. And so you just need to have a vision and a plan for real estate. You can sell 5 homes a year. You can sell 10. You got to put in the work. You got to go out there. You can't just sit in the office. You have to, go into communities and introduce yourself and just build relationships. So if you're not a people person, I don't think it's for you. If you love people, you want to see them win, I can see someone doing very, very well in this field. And then the other challenge is the 9 to 5. If you have a 9 to 5 and you're in real estate, it would be hard to transition into real estate full time. That's the challenge I have. It's like, I'm going to keep my real estate. I have my University of Washington job. I love my real estate, but with the cost of living being so high here, I keep both. But if I wanted to transition, you have to make sure your money's right. You have to make sure your coins are right, that you'll be okay for at least a year. So that's the advice I can give.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that definitely points to a barrier in a lot of fields, unfortunately, that, like you mentioned before, a lot of families don't know about financial literacy, especially those that are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And you mentioned that, you didn't know you had to have a savings, but it still worked out for you. And so congratulations on not letting that stop you and still pushing through that and getting to where you are. I was wondering if you could speak a little more about, being in the real estate field during times when the housing market is a little more volatile or when you're not getting as much sales. What advice or, what things have you encountered during those times, and how do you navigate it when it's a little more slow and you can't sell as many homes as you had prepared for?
Well, again, it's about passion. Real estate is my passion. So whether the market is volatile, when times are slow, I'm not selling as many homes. With some people, that will break them. With some people, that will cause them to give up. Real estate is not my only source of income. And I set myself up so it's not my only source of income. So in the downtime, I still participate. I still go to sales meetings. I still talk to people. I still network. I'm building relationships, because the relationships you build in your downtime, when the market picks back up, those same relationships are going to reach out to you. So it goes in cycles. When it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, but you have to be able to have the mindset to wave out those seasons. And it hasn't really been that challenging because I have a 9 to 5, because I have other things, because I have other investments. I invest in a land project that my cousin has in Vancouver, Washington. And so she bought some land and she reached out to me and my son to be an investor. And so I invested some money. This was like last year, and they built their first home. And so the home is up on the market. It's a nice home. It's a duplex. And when she sells that home, I get a chunk of money back. And this was during my downtime. So I just find creative ways to make my money work for me. And and then I just build relationships. I think in Washington, I can't speak for any other states, but you have to have more than one source of income. You have to. And real estate it's a beast. It's a really lucrative career, but you have to think it out. You have to have a cushion. And the ideal person might say, well, what's the cushion? What are you talking about? What do you mean cushion? Okay, how much rent do you pay? How much rent do you pay? Do you pay $2,000 a month? Okay, so you pay $2,000 a month times that 12. Cover a year. Are you the type of person are you a people person? Will you get out and talk to people? No, or you expect people to come to you? If people to come to you, you may need a little more. It's gonna take you a little more time to reach people, because a lot of people are not comfortable with talking on the phone. They're not comfortable with initiating conversations. They're not comfortable in a group setting or even a one-on-one. So just preparing. So haven't really been challenging because I have a strong support system. And it's slow. It's been slow for me this year. I have a couple clients, but they're waiting for the interest rates to go down. And even with the new lawsuit that's happened in recent months, with the National Association of Realtors, there was a big lawsuit because when at first, and it changed this month in August, I think August the 18th, but there was a national lawsuit that when a listing agent, which is the person that sells the home. So if I was to sell my home, I would hire a listing agent to put my home on the market. And when that home sold, the listing agent was responsible for paying the seller's commission and the buyer's commission. So I'm the listing agent. I'm modeling, staging, getting the house ready for sale. And then there's the buyer's agent that's trying to find a buyer for that home. So if I'm selling my home, I would have to pay the person I hired to list my home, and I have to pay the buyer's agent, the person that found the buyer for the home. And now the laws has changed. So that's going to be a little more challenging. And so whoever's in the market of buying a home, they would more than likely have some money to be responsible for paying something. It's always it's negotiable. So for example, I sold a home not too long ago, and my client didn't really have any money. And so I negotiated that the sellers pay $17,000 of their closing fees. That was it. Now the seller can come back and say, we're not paying that. And then I would have to go to the buyer and say, hey, do you have this much money? And they may say no. And then if the seller's not willing to negotiate, and then maybe they're not ready to buy a home. And maybe we have to find another seller that's willing to negotiate. So it's kind of tricky. So that's the new challenge. But, that's real serious. That was a really serious lawsuit. And so I'm trying to adjust to how I approach my clients and to be as transparent as possible.
That is very helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I did hear about that lawsuit too, and I think it also points to how there's, kind of an access issue for many low-income home buyers and, Black buyers in particular, where we don't always have, the down payment for a home, especially in a competitive market like Washington. And I was hoping you'd be able to share more about any down payment assistance programs that maybe, Black home buyers may not know, or first time home buyers, young people. Are there any programs out there that can kind of supplement those down payments or make that home buying process a little bit easier?
There are programs out there, but the individual, whoever's seeking to purchase a home, they would have to, it depends on your county. Like in Pierce County, the last I checked, they didn't have a lot of funding. And so with King County, there's some courses, but the funds were not available. And if the funds are available, again, there's a lot of people that don't have the money. And so what I would recommend is reaching out to the different real estate brokers, and they have their own system and how they go about doing things, but I don't have anything offhand that I can just tell you, because it just depends on your credit. It depends on your family size. It depends on whose name is going to be on the house. There's a lot of variables. So what I would recommend is just looking up, taking a first-time home buyer class, or looking up your local real estate broker, and they can just assist you, because there's a lot of questions that go into that to making sure that you're set up right. And individually, I have a couple people that have different programs, but it just kind of varies. And so I don't have that information with me on hand, but I can get that to you at a later date.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you. I definitely will be reaching out to you when I'm in the space to buy a home. So you will be my realtor for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. And I think, that was a great question, Tiana. And I think that leads great into our next question, kind of relating to generational wealth. According to data from the Federal Reserve collected in a 2022 survey of consumer finance, the average net worth for Black families was roughly 211,000, while the average net worth for white families was 1.4 million. Can you speak to the importance of home ownership as it relates to building generational wealth for Black and low income families?
Sure. So, like I said earlier, early on, we need to teach our children about financial literacy, financial responsibility, the importance of good credit. And, when I was coming up, I didn't get that. And it's like when I try to explain this to people in a way that they really, really understand it, home ownership is the most attainable and most accessible road to building commonwealth. And what I mean by that is that we have to pay rent anyway. If we're not owners, we have to pay rent. So if you're paying rent, it's a liability, If you're owning a home, it's an asset. And so something that you have to do anyway, why not pay yourself? Why not invest yourself? So if you're paying $200,000 a month for rent, pay 200, not 200,000, $2,000 per month for rent. Why don't you pay that $2,000 a month for mortgage? And when you pay that in mortgage, it works for you because your home, the appraisal value of your home, it goes up. And so what most people don't realize, when your home is appraised at a higher value, like if you pay $250,000 for a home, you sit in that home for 5 years. And when the appraiser comes out, when you're ready to sell your home, or you just want it appraised, and they say, well, now your house is worth $375,000, you have all this extra money from paying a mortgage. But if you were paying rent, you're just paying someone else's mortgage and you're making them wealthy. So it's a very basic need. And that's what I tell the low income. It's a basic need. And what my family didn't do, but what I encourage other families to do, and I don't think it's too common in the Black community, we need to do better with working together, because other nationalities, they all live in one household. They all work together. And even though Washington State is expensive, we all need to, if one person can't carry the mortgage, live in one household. You can get a mortgage with 4 or 5 people on that mortgage, so you can afford it. Pay off that home, get another house, or get a duplex, or buy an apartment building. But it starts very, very small, and it's very, very attainable. I bought a home some years ago, and when the market was real hot, because my home was my first time. I was a first-time home buyer. I didn't go through any classes because I had, the money to put down on it. And so when I bought my home, it wasn't my ideal home. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want to be here. But it was okay. It was a condo. And so I had really, really expensive taste, and I had to just tell myself, LaVoyce, this is temporary. This is an investment. This is Washington State. I'm not able to afford what I would like, but this is my way to get in the doors. And when I did that, best decision ever, ever. So when the market was hot, and my mortgage was $1,800. $1,800, what can you get with $1,800 today for rent? Not much. So my mortgage was $1,800. And then when I sold my home, I got over 6 figures, and I was just in that home for what? 2.5 years, that condo. And there was a bidding war over my condo. I staged my own condo, because I was an agent when I sold it. I staged it, I decorated, there was like 5 or 6 people bidding on my place, which cost me to get more money. So for people that are struggling, have low income, pay off your credit, Take your time. Don't stress yourself out. If you have a family that you work good together, live in one household. When one wins, all win. Live in one household and help each other out. It's so basic. Like you buy food doesn't pay us. We consume food, then it's gone. But then when you live in a space, because the value is in the land. Land is worth a lot of money. So if a house is on the land, it's going to appraise because the land and the location is what's important. So if you buy a condo, you buy a townhouse, if you start out small, just know whatever you're doing, if you get discouraged, that's going to pay you in the long run. People go to college. Most families pay their children's tuition through their house. They take out the equity from their house and they pay off their homes. They start small business. They draw from their homes, all of that. And so that's the best advice ever. A lot of people say, well, I'm not ready. I'm like, well, you're paying rent. So you're not ready to pay rent, but you're paying it. Well, I don't want to stay in Washington State. It's too expensive. Okay. I personally don't want to stay in Washington State either. I'm from here. And so while you're paying rent, you could be paying the mortgage 5 years, sell your place. Or if you don't want to sell it, leave Washington, rent your place out and go somewhere else. It's just that simple. And that goes to say what I said before. Surround yourself with people that know what they're talking about. Surround yourself with a wealth of knowledge. Surround yourself with people that own a home. Surround yourself. That is so important. And that's the best advice I can give. And again, growing up, our focus was just survival. So when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about that. You're not. And another thing people don't talk about, they don't talk about or discuss the importance of life insurance. I'm very big on life insurance. My family didn't talk about life insurance. If something was to happen to me, my son would be very, 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 very well off. And I didn't share that with him, but it's very important. A lot of people pass away and then they have the GoFundMes, and there's nothing wrong with GoFundMe because we all struggle, but it just goes back to financial literacy and making your money work for you and setting up your loved ones to where if something happened, they're not struggling. Having a place to live is a basic necessity. And if you're struggling with rent and getting evicted and on the street, you're not being your best version of anything. You're not being yourself. So we can get our community educated on what it takes to buy a home. If we can get our community educated of the importance of good credit. If we at the dinner table, no one really eats at the dinner table in my surroundings, but if we can get family to meet at once a week, Sunday dinners, and talk about credit, talk about the economy, talk about the vision, talk about the plan, talk about ways to support each other. When I came up, we didn't do that, and so my son and I, we have those conversations all the time. Ultimately, what I want to do with my real estate is to start being a land developer. And I'm thinking that's probably 10 years out. And so I can build affordable homes for people that are struggling so it can be more attainable. When I was younger, I was more selfish in what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to have my own business and make a lot of money. I'm not really into making money. I'm into helping people win. And that's what real estate is. Although it's a money-making business, it's not what's driving me, because I haven't really made too much money in 2024 and I'm still standing and I have no desires to give it up. Anything worth fighting for, you just have to stand and you can't shake and you can't waver. If this is something you want to do, it doesn't matter what profession you're in, stay focused. If you need a pep talk, you need to vent, find them people, find those communities, because I get a lot of calls. People vent to me all the time. I vent. You have to vent, but you have to stay on course. You have to. So if you're paying rent, you can pay a mortgage. how you get a mortgage, you have to talk to people. If you need help getting a mortgage, work as a family, work as a community. It's not impossible. But again, no one knows that. They think it's out of reach because they're not in the right circles.
Thank you so much. That all was so valuable. You have no idea, just hearing all that advice. I wanted to ask you something that we often hear just talking to Gen Z and the younger generations, especially those who don't come from privileged backgrounds, just with the cost of living increasing, the amount of student loans that we have. A lot of us, have credit card debt and things like that and have trouble building up a savings when we're first getting up on our feet in this economy when we don't have that stable background. What advice do you have for people that have a lot of student loans, that may have credit card debt, that still want to purchase a home or a condo, that are already paying that $2,000 a month for rent? And is that even possible when you have, other liabilities financially?
Well, with student loans, they have all kind of programs with student loans where you can get your payments lower. And so when I was on my journey to buying a home, I had my student loan deferred several times just because when I was younger, my focus wasn't on that. My focus was on other things. I was just going through a lot with my family life. But when I got myself together with student loans, I focused on paying my credit cards off. That's the key, paying your credit cards, because when you're in the market for purchasing a home, they're going to look at your debt. So if you have a car payment, pay your car note off. If you have credit cards, pay them off before you even apply for a loan to buy a house. If the student loan is all you have, it's not going to hurt you. But if you have a student loan in addition to a car note, in addition to credit cards, you're not ready. You're not ready. So my advice, pay your debt off. Pay your debt off. And all that extra money that you use paying your debt off, put it in a bank account. Save your money. It's attainable. It's reachable. I wish someone would have talked to me in my 20s. Sometimes I get upset because I didn't have those conversations. I wish I would have ran into someone that would have poured into my life and said, you're smart, you're educated, you can do anything your heart desire. It is not too hard. It is not impossible. You may have to work a little harder, but it's not out of reach. And I didn't get that. I started my journey well into when I really got myself together in my 40s. So younger people, pay your bills off. Work smart. You're very smart. Pay your bills off and save your money. And if you have a student loan, there's all kind of different programs to get your loan deferred. My sister has 2 master's degrees. She just got her loan paid off completely. So there's a lot of programs out there, a lot of programs. So I wouldn't let that discourage them.
Wow, I'm learning so much. Thank you for breaking all of that down. And I think that's such a great advice for, particularly Gen Z, as Brad was pointing to about the cost of living and not feeling that we're able to, get our heads out from underwater, but you really kind of show that it is more attainable than people think, and that if you are paying rent, the rent prices are comparable to a mortgage. And that's something that I don't think many people know, is they are paying off someone else's mortgage, like you said, instead of paying themselves, and then building that equity to set themselves up for those other goals, such as starting a small business or paying off their kids' college through those home equity loans. And you also pointed to the life insurance. That's something that many people are not even aware of, that you can literally pay your kids if anything were to happen to you, which, you don't want to think about that or, make that a reality. But if it were to happen by chance, your kids or whoever you want to give that to as a beneficiary will be completely supported and stable and won't have to resort to crowdfunding to survive. So I just thank you so much for talking about all those very important topics. And just transitioning a little bit, to your journey as a mother. I know that you mentioned you had two children, and in 2009, you tragically lost your daughter, LaYana. Please correct me if I'm mispronouncing her name. Is it
Yeah,
LaYana?
LaYana.
LaYana.
Hmm.
It's a sickle cell anemia. Can you tell us how you kept faith during a significantly emotionally challenging time?
Sure. So, let me just go back a little bit just to bring you up to speed. So, again, I was a teenage mother. I went to Ingram High School. Um, I got pregnant when I my was my junior year in high school. Going through things in my home life. So that was that's my truth. It's not a popular thing to do, but that is my truth, and I own it, and I own it proud because it made me who I am today. So LaYana was born in 1985. When I brought her home, she was a good baby, but I think she just kept crying and kept crying. And my mother and I was like, well, what is wrong? Why she keep crying? We kept taking her to the hospital. And they would say, well, she has the flu, and they would give her some medicine, or she has a little cold, this and that and the other. And me being a young teenage mom, my mom said, well, we need to take her back. And so, my mom is old school mom. She's very militant. She does not play. She said, we need to take her back. It doesn't make sense. My granddaughter is sick like this. So my mom demanded a blood test. And at this time, I'm just being a teenager. I'm like, okay. And so a blood test at 7 months. And at 7 months, she was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. And even when they told me, when I found out, I didn't understand the gravity of that disease. I didn't. I really didn't. And then when my uncle passed away from it on my father's side, that's when a light went off and said, I'm like, uh-oh, I need to grow up. And this thing is serious. And so when my daughter uh passed away in 2009, ironically, she passed at the University of Washington, and she went into a coma on Mother's Day. So Mother's Day 2009 was May 10th. She passed away May 19th. So when she passed away, that was really, really hard for me. That was hard. It was like a out of body experience, even when she was passed on, and everybody was praying, and family was coming up from the hospital, and then the doctors would have me go in the room. Well, I had a couple meetings with the physicians, and the physicians will talk to me. They were talking to me, but I didn't understand a word they were saying. And the only thing I can remember saying at the time, I just said, what are you telling me? It was like five doctors in one room. I said, what are you telling me? What are you telling me? And I said, are you telling me my daughter's going to die? And they said, yes. And they're like, well, Miss Ezell, is there anything we can do to help? I said, if you can't save her, no, there's nothing you can do. So I called my mom. Everybody came up to the hospital. We all prayed or did whatever. And then, I don't remember a lot of that part of it, and I'm a very spiritual person. And so when my daughter was laying up in the hospital, she was in a coma. She was on life support, and she was in a coma. And I said, Lay. I called her Lay. Her name is LaYana, but I called her Lay. I said, Lay, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. And so she squeezed my hand. I said, if you're hurting, nod your head. And she tried to nod her head. And then I told her, I said, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, I said, use your faith. Use your faith. Make peace with whoever. Pray your way through this because it's out of my hand. Just use everything that I've taught you. Use your faith. And she kind of, you can see a big crocodile tear come out her eye. And then so when my family was in the room, everyone was up there, she had opened up her eyes, and it was just, she opened up her eyes, And when she opened up her eyes, out of all the people in the room, her eyes was fixated on me. And I could have went to the bathroom or not in the room, but timing is everything. So she looked at me, and in that look, she was telling me, bye. That's the look I got. And my mom said, my mom started crying. She had a look, as if she was leaving and she didn't want to leave me. And so I just told her, hold on. We was all getting excited. Oh, she's awake. She's awake. And then she had went back under. And so that was really hard. But before she passed away, she told me one word, one phrase that I think about daily. She said, Mom, what will be, will be. That's what my daughter told me. I didn't know anything about her passing away. She said, what will be, will be. And I think about that often. And so after she passed away, I was in a dark space. I was kind of numb. I stopped eating. Again, there's no book on how to grieve. I don't even know how to describe it, because even when she passed away, I went in the room and I was shaking her hand. I was, just nudging her. She didn't move. My son came in the room and, he was devastated. And so when she passed away, I had to learn how to live again. Because when she was on life support in that room and passed away, I found myself needing life support. And I struggled with trying to find life support to keep me going. And I don't even have an illness. And so I struggled with that, but I prayed my way through. A lot of people don't pray. Whatever works for you, you can go to, support groups, whatever. But for me, people couldn't reach me. Words could not reach me. Encouragement, I appreciate all the well wishes, but it couldn't reach me. So I cried myself to sleep for months and years. I never questioned God, because we're not promised to stay down here forever. We all have an appointed time where we have to leave, whether it's through a sickness, whether it's through a tragedy, whether it's through natural causes. We all have an appointed time to leave. And while we live, we got to make the best of it. And her life taught me a valuable lesson. And the lesson I got from her life is, this is all temporary. My life support, the University of Washington, enjoying my family, it's all temporary. Love who you love, embrace who's around you, because here today, gone tomorrow. And so at her funeral, I spoke at her funeral, and, I just told everyone that's the best gift God has ever given me, but it wasn't my gift to keep. Who am I to get mad over someone passing? I don't control this universe. I was just blessed to have her 23 years, and in them 23 years, she's touched a lot of lives. Not once when she was sick has she ever complained about being sick. She never wanted me to tell people she had sickle cell anemia, because she didn't want to be treated different. And so I value that. I respect that. The doctor told her a couple times. She died when she was 23. She didn't have a good life expectancy. She knew she was going to die. She told me, she said, Mom, the doctors told me that I'm going to die and that I wasn't going to live past 18 or something. And me being the mother that I am, I said, that is not your place to tell my daughter that. She's a minor. You have no right telling my daughter that. And they apologize. But when you have younger people, especially Black people in the hospital, and they have a chronic illness, you have to show the doctors, the nurses, that you are vested in your child, your mother, whoever, if it's an elderly, that you are present, that you're not abandoning them, that you are aware of what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, you ask questions. I taught my daughter, when they said they're going to start a treatment, ask them, can they pronounce what they're giving you? Ask them about the side effects. Get a pen and paper, write it down. When a doctor's coming in, a new doctor, look at their badge, get their name, write the time, give me a call, because I was a full-time mother when all this happened. I was working for I was working for Metro. And when I was working for Metro, one of my supervisors asked me to, why are you here? I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you here? Because oftentimes the hospital will call my job, being again a single mom, will call my job and get me off the road and have a driver to relieve me because something's going on in the hospital. So I was trying to do everything as a single mother. The reason why I chose Metro is because of the medical benefits. I wanted my daughter to have the best medical care possible. And they had excellent medical benefits. And so when she passed away, I grieved. And then the life support movement came about. I was just laying, and I was thinking, man, I have to get myself together. She's not coming back. This is not healthy. And I can't be selfish because I have a son that depends on me. She wasn't my only child. And so that's how the life support movement was birthed. She was on life support, but life support for her was just, her organs was just shot. So they were just trying to keep her living, but her body shut down. And so she passed away. And so that's how the life support movement was birthed, through just my daughter being on life support, and just going through it, just really going through it. So anybody out there that's grieving, to have a loved one in the hospital, you have to show them doctors that you're on it, because there's a lot of racism and I hate to say it, in the hospital. They accuse my daughter to being a drug addict, and they don't even know she didn't even like taking medication because she didn't like the way it made her feel. She was in hospital Christmases. She missed a lot of her birthdays. She was in hospital a whole summer, 3 or 4 months at a time. So I had to ask the doctor, is this your first patient with sickle cell? And they would like, well, I studied in medical school. I said, I didn't ask you that. I said, is this your first patient with sickle cell? I'm not talking about book knowledge. I'm talking about a human. They was like, yes. I said, I respect you trying, but my daughter's not an experiment. You're not going to practice on her. You need to talk to your supervisor and find someone that knows about this disease, because she needs empathy, because she didn't choose to have this disease. She needs empathy. She needs someone that hears her. You're in here treating a disease. You never mind saying, good morning, how are you feeling? What can we do for you? How is your day? And so there's a lot of that going on. There's a friend of mine that died for cancer. I had to advocate for her too. And so at one time in 2006, I moved to Texas because of my daughter. No one in Washington knows about that disease. That should be mandated in the educational system. A part of the health curriculum, when these young kids take health, Sickle Cell Month is the month of September, Sickle Cell Awareness Month. They should spend a whole month, like they do Black History Month, learning about sickle cell anemia, learning on how you get it. I'm a carrier. Her father's a carrier. My mom didn't tell me about that. My father didn't tell me about that. That was my lesson. I tell my son that when you get married and you want to have a family, ask questions, get a blood test, because as a parent, it's the worst feeling. You can't do anything to help your daughter. So when you're a carrier, the mom's a carrier, the dad's a carrier, the blood cells, the red blood cells, they're like in a sickle shape. They're like in a moon shape. So if they're in a moon shape, they can't pass through your body. And the red blood cells is the cells that give your body oxygen. So if they're like in a moon shape and they're stuck and they're getting sticky, that's what causes a crisis. And so, but again, I didn't learn this. I'm just a teenager getting I wasn't a troubled teenager. I've been through some stuff. I was in foster care. That's a whole nother show. But, so yeah, when I create the life support, um, that was my life support. The life support was my life support because my daughter's life was not in vain. It was not in vain. So I created the life support movement to be a place where people can come and go and get the basic essentials for life support. And then we can go into that later on. But I'm just, trying to address your question about how I got through it. It took about 2018, 2009, no, 2017 or 2018 is when life support came about. And then my first event with life support, I had a couple events, but that's the inception of the life support movement. And it came about with my daughter's death and how I found myself. She was on life support and I found myself needing it. And I had to crawl out of that. So sorry for babbling, but that's just what it was.
No, do not be sorry. Thank you. Yeah, don't be sorry. Thank you so much for sharing. I can only imagine how that would feel, especially as a mother, your firstborn and going through that. I just, I commend you for remaining strong and pulling yourself out of that. And I know you mentioned that you're very spiritual and that you have strong faith. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how your spirituality and how your faith in those dark times, got you through it, especially in those moments.
Well, you're not the first person to ask me that. I've been asked this question hundreds of times, and there's been people ask me, "Are you mad at God? Are you angry?" And I'm not. And faith, I believe in the power of prayer. That's just my upbringing. And there's people that don't believe in God. I'm not here to preach because everyone has their own journey. But, my faith started when I was a little girl. So when I was a little girl, I've always been kind of curious. So I always would just look around when I was about 5 years old and say, hey, I always knew internally that there was always something bigger than myself. But when I was younger, I didn't know how to articulate it. I didn't understand it. And I always thought, who put the clouds in the sky? Or how did the mountains get there? Or I'm breathing, but I don't see what I'm breathing. I've always thought that way growing up. And so as I got older, and when my daughter was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia, I got into church because I found myself just lost. It's like, I don't know what to do. When I was younger, my mom made me go to church, but when I got older, I chose to go to church. So I would just stay in the prayer line and they would talk about faith and I would read scriptures for myself. And if it wasn't for my faith and not understanding faith, I would not be talking to you today because I would have gave up. I don't think I can survive without faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence is things not seen. Hebrews 11:6 in the King James Version in the Bible. So faith, a lot of us use our faith and don't even know we use our faith. When we get in our car, our faith is telling us we're going to make it to point A to point B. When we sit on our chair, our faith is telling us, we don't even know it's faith, that this chair is going to hold you up. When we get in the airplane, we're expecting to go to our destination, but it's faith. And so early on, I always knew that there was something bigger than myself. And if I stay, like during the years that I struggled, if my mindset stays into my struggle, I will fail. For example, when I was younger, I struggle with managing my bills or whatever, but I always had faith. And when I mean by faith, I would say, okay, I can't look at the circumstances. I got to do something about it. I can't soak in this. I have to do something about it. I didn't see myself in that space. I was looking outside of that space. Even in real estate, when I was studying for my exam, I was like, oh, this is hard. But I kept my faith. I'm like, LaVoyce, you can do it. Oh, God, help me pass this test. It's a lot. I had a lot going on. And before I took my exam, I passed my test. And the same day I passed my test, my mom, not knowing, called me and told me that my uncle passed away. And I'm like, Mom, I didn't need to hear this right now. So I had to like focus on my exam. So faith is not, when you have faith, even when you guys have your podcast and you're progressing in your career, you're going to hit some bumps and some snags. You may even get discouraged along the way, but you can't stay in that space. You have to think outside of that space. So when I was young, not really poor, but struggling, I always see myself successful. I didn't see myself in that space because of my faith. When I was young and there's things I didn't like, I was always looking outside of that, and I wrote a book. I haven't published it yet, but I do have a book and I'm working on that. And my book is called Internal. And internal is the way that I process my struggles. So I just say if I was homeless or something like that, or I've lost everything, internally, I create a whole new universe for myself, a whole new world for myself. I don't feel like I'm that, or I don't feel like I'm in that space because I'll die. And that's probably like a defense mechanism to, you have to, what you're going through, but you're not staying there. So I prayed my way through things, even in college. When I was in college, I graduated from Seattle Pacific University. My daughter was in the hospital 95% of that time. I had to get incompletes. When I went to Green River Community College, I graduated with honors. I received a scholarship for Como TV, Channel 4 News. I struggle with all of this, but because of my faith, I made it through. I spoke things into existence. I don't speak doubt. I don't speak negativity. I surround people that believe in me. I had a good support system. So faith for younger people, for people that are listening, it is everything. If someone tells you no, your faith tells you yes. And if you believe in God or you believe in a higher power, you go to that higher power for strength, for encouragement, for motivation, and you pursue, because our struggles and our failures are not failures, they're lessons. They're preparing you for a greater good. Those failures are setting you up to win. You have to look at it like that. Most people that are famous, they fail hundreds of times, not one time, but their failure made them resilient and they made them ready for whatever. So I embrace my mistakes. I embrace my failures. But with that, I'm nothing without the Creator. I'm not. I'm not. And even with working in corporate world, the corporate sector, I've been mistreated. I've wanted to quit, but I just said, no, I'm going to stick with it, because if I leave, I'm going to leave on my terms. I just be respectful. I pray for a peaceful day and just pray that God will make a way, because everything for me is a means to an end. And when I say that, because I'm not a complacent individual. Even at the University of Washington, I like my department, I like my team, but I'm not going to stay there because I'm an elevator. I like to challenge myself. Whatever lies ahead of me, I'm ready for it. If you're living on this earth, God got something great for everyone. There's people that doubt, say, I can't do that. Oh, that's too hard. Says who? So faith has always carried me. It will continue to carry me until I take my last breath. It's just how I live, because it's just too much negativity. It's hard out here. And a lot of people, they come to work, they put a smile on their face, but behind closed doors, they're crying, they're suffering, they're having problems with their loved ones, with their families. They have nowhere to turn to. And I know it because I've been that individual. And so, no, my faith carries me through. It will continue to carry me through. And so, you lose a loved one, you're going through these, just faith. Faith is powerful. Give it a try. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But it's a powerful tool to use in this world that we live in.
This was so beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much for speaking to that. And I can just see how your faith has continued to guide you, even through having to endure all of these tragedies. You maintained that mindset of hope and understanding that there was more to come, and that all of these experiences were accumulating to prepare you for where you were going to go, and that you were going to need to have those lessons, that were learned, even though they were hard learned. And it's not something that you would wish on anyone, losing a child and at such a young age. I mean, it's just absolutely devastating. And so I empathize with you so much. And just to see how strong you are, like, you just radiate that hope. Like, I can feel it, from who you are and how you interact with other people. Like, you're so kind, and I can tell, like, that's how you're able to maintain these amazing relationships, even in your career. Like you said, like, real estate is an industry where you need to have people around you in a community of support. And I can just see that, like, you galvanize people around you, even though you said you're an introvert, but it's just the way that you are. Like, you just carry yourself with such a nice, like, light, just radiant about you. And it's just beautiful to see. And I'm so, excited to read your book. Whenever that comes out, please let us know, because I would love to learn more about your story. And I'm so grateful that you've spoken to that. And, for me too, just my faith has been a big part of getting me to where I am. And as I reflect back on certain experiences where I've really struggled, like even in college, I was a first gen college grad, came from a low income background, and I didn't think I was going to be able to afford to, live in Seattle and go to the University of Washington. But I just kept telling myself, you know what, something's going to work. I'm going to be able to get scholarships. I'm going to get financial aid. I'm going to work at Starbucks. Sometimes I'm going to work 2 or 3 jobs, but it's like every time I thought, I'm not going to make it, God showed me an opportunity, and then I was able to continue pursuing my goals. But it's really because of that faith, like you said. So I just thank you for that so much.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Because when I got my degree, again, I had my daughter when I was 16. I had my son when I was 20. Their dad was doing whatever. And a teenage mom, 2 kids at 20, started college in 92, went to Highline in 92 to 94, Green River from 95 to 96, and then from SPU 96 to 98. And I'm doing this with a sick child, so it was really, really hard. But my mom has always instilled the importance of having an education. And I am so grateful for her. Our life wasn't perfect, but that lesson was necessary. And so it kind of just carried on into other adventures. So Tiana, I'm glad you didn't give up. I'm glad. You have to encourage yourself. Sometimes you're going to be the only one to encourage yourself, but you're here, and you're a good, positive person. You light up the room as well when you come in. So yeah, that's good to hear that. It's good to hear a good report.
Thank you so much. And just building on this, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk more about sickle cell disease. According to the CDC, those with sickle cell disease have a life expectancy that is 20 years shorter than the average in the United States. Additionally, approximately 90% of all the patients diagnosed in the U.S. with sickle cell disease are Black. This was cited by the National Library of Medicine in 2019. What awareness would you like to bring to our listeners regarding sickle cell anemia?
Educate yourself on sickle cell. Just educate yourself on sickle cell, because I don't think it's sickle cell doesn't get the same amount of publicity that cancer and leukemia gets. And so I would say to educate your sickle cell, because I'm pretty sure everyone that's Black knows someone that has sickle cell disease. And as far, this is a constant in my life. What I did, pray if you're dealing with the sickle cell, because it's going to be some dark times. Educate yourself on eating healthy, because let me just go back. When my daughter had sickle cell, they didn't focus on nutrition. I wish they would have. They didn't focus on, there was treatments, but there's a lot more advanced treatments now. But back then, they didn't really, and it could be just the demographics, the location where I was at, because there's probably a handful of Black people here in Washington State. So I didn't get that type of support. But educate yourself on eating healthy, educate yourself on possible treatments, invest in your healthcare, ask questions. Like, again, I said before, interview physicians, ask them questions ask them. When my daughter was in the hospital, I asked them, what is sickle cell? They couldn't even tell me. You couldn't tell me right up front what was sickle cell. What is sickle cell? How many patients? So ask those questions. Let your physicians know that you're not illiterate. Let your physicians know, even if you don't know, that they better know if they're going to treat any of your loved ones. So I would just educate yourself. Ask your health, talk to, if you're a younger generation and you're in school and college, ask your professor if you're taking a health class, if you're taking a science class. Encourage them to, or do a paper on it, or have them to make it a part of the curriculum. Because if I would have known then what I know now, I can't say that, but this is just my older self talking. I would have made different decisions. But when you're a teenager, you don't think with your head. You think with your body. You don't think with your head. But if I would have known, I would have asked, I'm a 16-year-old. I would ask my kid's father, do you have a sickle cell trait? Let's get a test. I wasn't thinking about that. My mom didn't tell me that because, she didn't know what I was doing, because I was just a teenager, just trying to escape from some things. That's another segment. But yeah, so ask questions, eat healthy, eat food that's high in iron. If you're thinking about starting a family, ask your partner questions about, what's inherited through the family. Just ask questions, because sickle cell is a blood disorder. It's in your blood. There's no getting out of it. So I would just ask questions, and challenge the doctor, challenge your teachers, your instructor, healthcare system. I would just challenge. But if I can do it all over and my daughter was living today, we would be vegans, definitely vegans. We would eat healthy. She didn't like to eat healthy. She just didn't like to eat healthy. She wanted what she wanted. And then she was in the hospital majority of the time. So she would order pastas and shrimp pastas, and she would get the puddings and, whatever. And this is a hospital. They know better than to give her that. But that's what they did back then. So just ask questions and just be an advocate for yourself and your family, because no one's going to give it to you. You have to do the research. But before you even bring a innocent person to this world, you're Black, if you're full Black, if you're mixed, ask the questions. My son, my daughter, I'm Indian, Black. My mom just told me I had some German in me. I didn't even know I had German in me. My daughter's father was Irish and Black, and his grandmother had a lot of Indian. I have Indian and Black. So when people ask me, I just say that I'm Black. My daughter she was light. She was fairly light-skinned, like really light. Tiana, she was your complexion, probably a little lighter. And so when she was living, I told her, she's like, I don't want any kids. I said, well, I wouldn't know, don't do that. But she was sometimes she was suicidal because she felt like she was robbed. I said, but if you were able to have kids and you got married, you better ask those questions, because when you're in the hospital and you're in a crisis, I can't do nothing but cry or massage your joints when this there's a crisis, when the cells are not passing through giving you oxygen. It was just a nightmare. It was just horrible. Screaming in the middle of the night. No family wants to go through that. So be proactive. Do your research before you bring an innocent child in the world. There's a lot of sickle cell foundations and support groups here in Washington. I follow them on Facebook. I'm thinking about in the future partnering up with them to kind of help once my life support movement gets further along. But educate yourself, because no one talks about it. No one talks about it. They don't talk about it enough. So that's my advice on that. Just educate yourself and be a soldier, ask questions. Don't be passive aggressive. Be aggressive, be assertive when it comes to that. He hold these positions, hold them accountable. You have these high medical bills. They're just trying to get you in and out the hospital. They're saving their beds for people that can pay more insurance. I've been through it all, but that's another topic. So that's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you definitely speak to how medicine is kind of seen as a business as well, and that, we're not viewed as like people, even there's been studies that show that doctors will look at Black women as being more tolerant to pain or having like a higher pain threshold and kind of minimizing all of that we're experiencing. And so I just really appreciate you speaking about that and also educating people on the disease specifically of sickle cell anemia, because I wasn't aware that, you could just get a blood test to check for that gene, because that is something that seems, more people should know, because we are so disproportionately impacted by the disease. And so when you are, in a partnership with someone that also is Black, it's like that could be a possibility. And so I am grateful that you are bringing awareness to that. And I would love if you'd be able to speak a little bit more as we're nearing to the end of the conversation. I know we've gone over time, but about the life support movement and any upcoming future plans that you have for it, and also just kind of the impact that you would like to make with it.
Okay, well, generally, life support movement, it's a movement. I'm still working on it, but the movement is there's different layers. Let me go back, because it's very complex. So back in 2018, when I established the life support movement, I gave 2 events. So the first event was the Struggle of a Black Man Part 1. The second event was the Struggle of a Black Man Part 2. And then COVID happened. And the third event was going to be the Rise of a Black Man. So I pull from people in the community. So there's like 2 parts to it. So this is the part that I'm going over first. So this is the community part of it. So I reach out to people in the community, people that I'm not looking for people with titles. I'm not looking for any of that. That doesn't impress me. I'm looking for people that's been in the system that has struggled. For example, I have people on my panel that was in prison, that just got out of the system, that couldn't find a job. I had people on my panel that was struggling, that's been falsely accused of something that they didn't do, that has been mistreated by the police, or has gone through some type of obstacle. They have a story to tell. So it's like the community is my panelists. The people that represents, they're representing the community, and the people that's coming to hear them speak, they're like talking to themselves, because I don't like when people talk and they're talking down on other people. So the people that comes to my events, they're struggling and they're not going to listen to me because I never been in jail. I have a felon. That's just not my story. So I purposely talk to people, and then people will say, well, you need to reach out to this person because this is his story. And then I'll reach out, I'll interview them, and I'm like, hey, would you like to be a part of the movement and be on my panel? And then when you speak on my panel, we can help each other, because I can promote, I can sponsor, I can push your product forward, whatever you're doing. And that's kind of how it started. So in the panel, we would talk about the struggle of a felon getting a job. We would talk about the perceptions of a Black man. We would talk about how to go about when a Black man is stopped by a police. We would talk about a single fathers that happen to be Black men, how they're not treated the same as a woman. We would talk about discrimination in the workplace. So I gave these panels, and we were running over time. I mean, these were some one-on-one. It was a small, intimate setting, but it was very, very powerful. And so I had one person that I went to school. He works with the youth detention. So he was telling me some of his stories about the things that he encountered. But in those events that I give, I also have people there. For example, I have this guy, his name is Rick Dimmer. He was in prison for some time, and he promised when he got out that he would help others. And so when I encounter people, because I get a lot of phone calls and people like, hey, I heard you do this and that and the other, I send them on to Rick, because Rick have this program. I think it's called R3 Community 3. I'll get it to you later. But he helps people in high school or that's been incarcerated. He gives them construction jobs. No discrimination. He give them on-the-job training. He get them into these jobs, and they're doing very well. They're able to get a place to live. And so when I do the events, I don't only talk about it. I have some tangible help there. And that's my goal with the life support. So that's the community part of it, is having these community forums, talking about things that's relevant, talking about things that affect us as a community, finding productive ways and efficient ways to overcome, networking, and just helping each other as a village. So that's the one side of it. The other side of the life support movement, and I changed that recently when COVID happened, it's just now I changed it to a social media platform. So it's a social media platform used to provide basic essential needs to millions around the world. It provides like healthy food subsidies for families in need. And what I mean by healthy food subsidies, and I've been doing this, I do this constantly. I'll post on Facebook, the first 3 people that respond to this post, if you're in need or if you know anyone in need, I will deliver 3 bags of groceries, healthy. And I let them know, and I'd let them know. So it'd be like a bag of potatoes. It'd be food from every food group. I'll buy them a bag of fish, maybe some chicken from Costco, a case of water, apples, bananas, oatmeal, broccoli. And I'll ask, is there any food that you don't like? You know, because I want to make sure bread, stuff, beans. And I'll give 3 bags of groceries. And that's what I've been doing for years. And so when COVID happened, and that's what I'm working now with my website that's not up. It's finished, but it's not up. I'm working on, so when I go live with my website, I'm going to reach in millions because I'll be doing this live. And so with that, that's the food part of it. Also, we provide transportation aid. So I'll be giving away, the movement will be giving away gas gift cards to help people, to mobilize people if they have a job interview or if they're just trying to get to work and gas is too high, you know, bus passes, vehicle maintenance. You have a vehicle, you need a new oil change or a spark plug. I'll give them something on it, like a vehicle voucher. That's what I'm doing, and I'm still working on that. And so, and then last but not least, we'll be subsidizing 20% of rent or mortgage. So if your rent is $3,000, we'll pay 20% of it. You know, I'm right now working on the income cap, but that's what I'm doing because I feel like when you have struggles as far as food, as far as mobility and not having a roof over your head, how could you be great in this community? You can't be great in this community. Your focus is on the wrong thing. So that's my life support for the community. And so I'm still working on that, but I think it's good. I've talked to a lot of people in the community and they said, this can take off. You got a good thing going. But I'm also being very strategic in how I want to market myself because my name and my hand is all into this. And once my website gets up, I'm going to give 10% of the proceeds, because I know I'm going to be monetized on Facebook, because how could it not? I'm going to give 10% of the proceeds to the Sickle Cell Foundation. And then I'm also working on adding a future a grief support group for people that are grieving. And I think we need a lot of that. So life support is supporting those that are living instead of the reverse. Those that are on life support, that are in the hospital, they're on their way out the door. So why not be proactive and have a community, a foundation where we help each other extend our life, that our life can be healthy and wealthy and productive, and we can pour back into the community and not be on life support when it's too late, when the doctor's telling you got weeks or days to live. That's no way. So my daughter's life really helped me realize that before my focus was on the wrong thing. I was always into fashion and this and that and the other. No, it's this me, my personal belief for my life. It's not about, you can like fashion, but what are you doing for your community? What are you doing for your neighbor? How are you, because if your neighbor fails, you fail. What are you doing to bring your community up? Because everything, it's a chain effect. If our whole department at work is doing bad, there's layoffs. So what are you doing to bring up your coworkers and your community and your neighbors? They may be in need, So I'm providing the basic essentials for people, low-income people that are struggling, just to win. I'm also providing them an outlet with the community forums to talk about what they're struggling with, so they're not suicidal, so they're not putting themselves back in the system. And then at those forums, I have people that can help right on the spot, get them the help they need. So that's what the life support movement is all about.
That is so beautiful. And please keep us posted about when you have that next event. Would love to attend and continue amplifying what you're doing. And also, I think that what you're doing is so important about just getting people those basic necessities, because like you said, how can someone be the best person that they can be or reach their full potential when they don't have food, they don't have shelter, they don't have what they need to thrive? And it's more than just surviving. Like, we want to ensure that everyone in our communities is healthier, stronger, and better, because we all care. And I love that you also discuss that we're interconnected and that we need to think more in this community-centric way, instead of this westernized vision where everyone's kind of out for themselves and, going for that career to make the most money and, get the clothes, get the house, get the cars. And it's something that you had touched on about, like, how you have even just seen that in yourself, like you had to unlearn that mindset of feeling like you want to get more material things, and that there's so much more to who we are as people and what we do, and that we all have the ability to give back and uplift others through our work, and then you will continue to be blessed. So I'm just so excited to see the life support movement continue to grow. And I know there's so many organizations that will hopefully be contributors to what you're doing just after we air this episode, like so many local nonprofits too, that I think like you just have something so special there, and I want to see that just ramp up. So I'm very excited, and just thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate it. This has been an amazing interview, an amazing, rich conversation that has touched on so many things that touch my heart, and I hope that will touch the audience's heart with also a lot of great advice. So thank you so much. This has been so great.
My pleasure.
Thank you. One of the things that we ask all of our guests, as it relates to our Blackness and the Black experience is, what does Blackness mean to you?
Resilient, intelligent, hardworking. We're beautiful. We're strong. We're powerful. We're uniquely and wonderfully made. That's what Blackness is for me.
Thank you so much. I definitely agree with all those things you said. I feel like, talking to a lot of our guests, resilience is one of the core themes. And I think that says a lot about, our experiences and how we continue to traverse through life. So,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, LaVoyce. I wanted to give you, any last few minutes to share anything that we didn't cover. I know you covered a lot. I learned so much just in this short time. So I'm excited for us to get together, get some coffee, get lunch or something on one of our breaks. But yeah, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
No, I think I've covered it all. I work for I'm serving the voiceless people. I'm serving the people that are often overlooked. And so just reach out to people that care about you. We only live once, reach out to people. It's hard because a lot of people don't even know what love is. I think that's another that I can go on and on about that. There's a false sense of love in our community. We don't know what love is. I have to self-teach myself what is love. It starts with you. It starts with you. So I think for the younger community and anyone that's out there listening, work on yourself. Don't self-project. Work on yourself. Because when you work on yourself, you're too busy to entertain all the nonsense out there. So just I'll be 56, I'm 55 years old. And my goal every day is to work on myself. What can I do better? How can I put a smile on somebody's face? Because even in doing that, it's really small. You get connected to some good networks. Because people, they don't want to be around mean people. They don't want to be around snappy people. Work on your attitude. Work on if you're struggling and you're stressed out, talk to someone. So no one is in this alone. You make it what you make it. And stop. And another thing, younger people don't like saying it, but I deal with younger people all the time. Stop blaming other people for your failures. Don't blame other people for your failures. I can blame a lot of people for my failures, but I choose not to because people know and project what they know. They don't know any better. And it's our responsibility to find out what we need to know for ourselves. We have to teach ourselves. All of my failures, even being a teenage mom, that lesson was for me. It's not for everyone. It was for me. And so I embrace my lessons. There's been time I lost everything. There's a lot I didn't go into. I lost everything. I had to start over from scratch. And it wasn't anything that I did. It was just the journey I needed to go through so I can be empathetic to those that's in that same space. A lot of people don't want to listen to a person that haven't been through anything. I've been without a place to stay. I know what it's like. I've sacrificed a lot because just the road that I was on with my daughter. I had to put my daughter's health first before money. So invest in yourself. Stop blaming other people. Get in touch with some support groups. If you want a house, reach out to people that specialize in the housing industry. If you want to start a business, reach out to people that already have a business. Put yourself in that energy, in that space. Eliminate toxics because people are very toxic. There's a lot of jealous people out in the community and they don't mean any harm. So that's the best advice I can give, put in the work. Put in the work.
Wow. I don't have anything to follow that up with. I feel like you dropped just so much amazing advice. And I think people will really be able to relate to everything that you've shared and hopefully go out into the world and continue to pursue their purpose. So Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so grateful for you to, give us a little bit of your time. I know you're so busy. So again, we just thank you so much for being here on this Sunday. And I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. And nice to meet you, Brad. I appreciate both of you. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
It was great meeting you two. Thank you so much for joining us again. This was one of my favorite conversations, truly. So thank you.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll definitely be in touch when we're ready to buy a house. So
okay, no problem.
I'm going to plan it. 5-year plan.
I'll hook you up. I'll take care of you. Just let me know.
Love it.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We are so grateful for your support, and thank you for listening to Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana
and Brad.
Thank you so much.